On one cold March day, a little girl quietly left her home and never returned. She left behind only a haunting void and the echo of unfinished footsteps. Her case soon turned into one of the largest search operations in the history of the United States. The mystery surrounding her disappearance lasted for over 6 decades, until the day the truth was finally revealed. Her name was Candace Rogers, but everyone called her Candy. She was born on July 8, 1949, in Spokane, Washington. She was the only child in her family, but her parents' joy didn't last long. They divorced shortly after her birth. Despite the separation, her father stayed in the city, which allowed them to spend time together regularly. Candy was a sweet, natural little girl in every sense of the word. She loved roaming with her friends, playing outdoors, and spending time with her dog. Like many girls at the time, Candy dreamed of joining Camp Fire Girls, an organization for girls similar to the Girl Scouts, offering its members skills and nature-based activities, including group hikes full of excitement. In 1959, at the age of 9, her dream finally came true. She became an official member of the organization, and her eyes sparkled with excitement. Among the tasks assigned to her was one that seemed simple: selling candy. Each girl was given several boxes and tasked with selling them door to door in nearby neighborhoods. On Friday, March 6, she was scheduled to carry out her mission. After school, she returned home, had dinner, and at around 4 p.m., she took 8 boxes of candy and left, carrying hope and excitement in her heart to offer the sweets to neighbors. There were other girls doing the same thing, but each had a designated area to avoid overlap. Hours passed, the sun set, but Candy did not return. Her mother grew worried. Candy was supposed to be home by 6 p.m., but she hadn't shown up. Such delays were unlike her. As darkness fell, her mother decided she had to start searching herself. She wasn't alone in her concern. Candy's father and grandfather joined in. They walked the streets calling her name, checking every corner without success. Neighbors and friends soon joined the effort. Despite the growing worry and intensified search, there was no sign of the little girl. In increasing desperation, her mother decided to call the police. By then, the sky was completely dark, and a dreadful feeling loomed. The police arrived quickly and began their investigation immediately. They questioned neighbors and examined every detail. Soon, they discovered something deeply troubling. Candy had only managed to sell 1 box of candy. This meant she may have disappeared shortly after leaving the house. A witness then came forward, a resident who claimed to have seen Candy walking on a nearby street around 6:30 p.m. This information raised alarms because it contradicted the timeline her mother and grandfather gave. According to them, they were already in that area around the same time. At that point, the grandfather mentioned a strange incident. While walking down the same street the witness referred to, a speeding car nearly hit him. It was going at a crazy speed and hit the curb before speeding off. He couldn't catch the license plate number, but he remembered the car clearly. It was a green 1953 Ford. The police were informed and began searching for the car, but to no avail. Around 7 p.m., another alarming sign appeared. Several candy boxes were found scattered near a local bridge. The boxes were identical to those Candy had. This painful discovery suggested Candy might have encountered danger in that area. The police focused their search efforts there, combing the riverbanks and the nearby wooded area. The search went on all night. Officers carrying torches slowly walked among the trees, calling her name. But no voice answered. No trace was found. With the sunrise the next day, the case became the talk of the town. Local newspapers began covering the story, and then state-level media picked it up. In 1959, child disappearances like this were rare. Candy's disappearance was a true nightmare that deeply shocked the residents of Spokane, a quiet town unaccustomed to such events. The police ramped up their efforts and launched one of the most extensive search operations in the country at the time. More officers were deployed. Mounted units scoured rough terrain. Even the military joined in, providing helicopters to search from above. Hundreds of volunteers from the town and neighboring areas joined in, men and women, young and old, all hoping to find a clue. The number of searchers grew to over 1,000. Maps of Spokane were laid out on tables, and the search radius extended to 11 miles from Candy's home. Yet, despite this massive effort, nothing was found. Amid this collective grief, another tragedy struck. One of the helicopters involved in the search crashed into power lines and went down. It was a bitter disaster atop the existing tragedy. 3 crew members died, and 2 others were seriously injured. An entire city was holding its breath, searching for a little girl, only to now also be mourning new victims. In the days that followed Candy's disappearance, anxiety filled every corner of Spokane. No sign of her was found. Search efforts continued for days without any meaningful results. Police officers worked tirelessly around the clock in shifts, moving between neighborhoods, fields, and forests, searching for any clue that could lead them to her. In the early days alone, detectives received around 750 reports from worried citizens or potential witnesses. Every lead was checked carefully, without exception. But the result was the same. Nothing. Days passed, and hope began to fade. But on the 15th day, the unexpected happened. 2 army men on a hunting trip in the woods west of Spokane noticed something strange. 2 small children's shoes on the ground. It only took moments for them to recall Candy's case. Many soldiers from the local base had participated in the search and knew the details by heart. The men contacted the police immediately. Within hours, the shoes were shown to Candy's grandfather. He stared at them for a long time before confirming, with deep sadness, "Yes, they are my granddaughters." The police rushed to the forest and began a thorough search of the area. It didn't take long. Within minutes, an officer spotted something strange in the shrubs, a small foot protruding from under some branches. As he got closer, the horrifying truth was revealed. There, motionless among the dense plants, lay the body of the little girl. She was covered with pine branches, in an attempt to hide her. A heartbreaking scene, too painful to describe. The coroner determined the cause of death to be strangulation. The weapon, a torn piece of Candy's own skirt. Cold-blooded murder. The forensic examination also revealed signs of restraint on her hands and feet. She had been tied up, but strangely, no ropes were found at the crime scene. As if that weren't enough, it was confirmed that Candy had been sexually assaulted before her death. During the site search, officers also found something else, a green car seat cover near the body. They also noticed a small purple stain on Candy's clothes, a grape-flavored chewing gum. But once again, it added no solid clues. With no definitive evidence, police explored every possibility. They re-reviewed all the submitted reports and considered the involvement of hundreds of people, from neighbors to known criminals. Then, unexpectedly, a strange name emerged among the suspects: Alfred Graves, a 50-year-old man. The reason for suspicion was strange. Alfred had ended his own life on the same day Candy's body was found. He did so inside his car, parked near where the candy boxes had previously been discovered. Worse still, he lived just a few hundred meters from Candy's home. When his car was opened, investigators found a rope and women's hairpins. The police wasted no time. They obtained a search warrant for his house. There, they found a large collection of newspaper clippings detailing past sexual crimes against women and girls. More disturbing evidence surfaced. Several women had previously accused Alfred of harassment. Even his wife admitted she had long suspected he might have been behind Candy's murder. The scene was deeply troubling. Everything pointed to Alfred, but the shocking truth? There was no actual evidence tying him to the crime. No DNA, no witnesses, no traces. He was never officially cleared, but proving his guilt seemed impossible. And so, investigators were back to square one. As time passed, the list of suspects grew. Dozens, even hundreds of names filled long pages. Each was investigated thoroughly, but the result didn't change. Months later, a new and terrifying name surfaced. Hugh Morris, a serial killer arrested in 1961 after it was discovered he had committed a string of heinous crimes. What made him especially interesting to investigators was one tiny, crucial detail. He was known to constantly chew grape-flavored gum. Detectives recalled the strange purple stain and grape scent found on Candy's clothes. That wasn't the only reason he became a suspect. Hugh had murdered 2 women in Spokane just months after Candy's death. His criminal history was long and dark. It began when he assaulted a woman during his military service. He wasn't properly punished and was later discharged. He committed a series of robberies in Los Angeles and spent just 6 months behind bars. But worse was yet to come. After release, he lured 2 little girls, each 8 years old, into a remote area, promising them ice cream. There, he sexually assaulted them. He was arrested, but shockingly, wasn't imprisoned. Instead, he was declared a sexual psychopath and placed in a psychiatric institution. Only 2 years later, doctors declared him cured and released him. He then moved to Spokane and began spying on women through their windows. In November 1959, he broke into the home of a 28-year-old woman. He raped and murdered her. He didn't stop. 10 months later, he broke into the home of a 69-year-old woman and repeated his horrific crime. Just a month later, he attacked another woman, stabbing her multiple times, but she survived. After this string of brutal crimes, he decided to leave the city. But that wasn't the end, it was merely the beginning of a new chapter of violence. Over the following months, he committed horrific acts, targeting women and girls. Using a knife, he sexually assaulted them, leaving behind 2 more bodies. He moved constantly, crossing states and cities, staying out of sight, until he entered the FBI office and took on the case himself. In a short time, he was added to the list of the top 10 most wanted criminals in the country. After an extensive manhunt, authorities finally captured him. He was sentenced to multiple life sentences. But even behind bars, his story didn't end. He attempted to take his own life in his cell, but the guards saved him at the last moment. He remained alive, serving his sentence behind bars, while investigations continued in search of the truth. The detectives never forgot the case of Candy. They visited him in prison repeatedly, questioned him, pressed him, but he denied any involvement in the crime. He underwent a lie detector test, and the results were shocking. It showed he was telling the truth. Although such tests are not admissible in court due to doubts about their accuracy, the result only deepened the mystery. But something kept the investigators from ignoring his criminal record and the fact that he was living in Spokane at the time of the crime. That alone made him the primary suspect. Despite his continued denial, there was no tangible evidence linking him directly to the murder. Over time, a new suspect emerged, a 49-year-old man named Howard Barth. In February 1960, police arrested him for allegedly molesting a minor. Just days after his arrest, he was found dead in his cell. He had taken his own life. Strangely, before his death, he wrote a message on the wall in his own blood. His wife had no idea about his arrest until she received the news of his death. When she spoke to police, she asked just one question: did he kill Candy? That sentence alone reopened the door of suspicion. Investigators began to reconsider his potential involvement. But as before, they found no evidence to prove it. Despite the lack of proof, Howard remained one of the prime suspects, especially since he lived close to the victim's home. For many years, police continued investigating the case, gathering new leads and questioning several suspects. At one point, police received an unexpected call from a woman claiming that on the day Candy disappeared, she saw a green car following her. This information changed the course of the investigation. Detectives focused their efforts on tracing that car, but all their attempts led to no decisive results. Stranger still, the woman only came forward with this testimony many years after the crime. Over the following decades, the case was reopened from time to time, but the investigation always hit a dead end. Oddly enough, detectives weren't only facing a lack of evidence, but also false confessions. 13 people confessed to Candy's murder. But each time, police discovered the confessions were fake. None of them could provide details only the real killer would know. They merely repeated what had already been published in the press. Though strange, such confessions are not rare. They often occur in high-profile cases. Some people admit to crimes they didn't commit for psychological reasons or a desire for attention. Over the years, the investigation team changed multiple times. Each new detective who joined the case held a faint hope that they might be the one to solve this haunting mystery. Before the crime, people felt safe. Children played outside freely. But after Candy's murder, everything changed. People re-evaluated their sense of security. Fear became part of daily life. At the beginning of the 21st century, a new glimmer of hope emerged. The case was reopened once again. A new investigator decided to rely on modern technology. Fortunately, police had preserved all the evidence from 1959. That allowed forensic experts to find a sample of semen on Candy's clothing. But the challenge was enormous. The sample had been stored for decades, making analysis complex. After extraordinary efforts, the experts succeeded in extracting a DNA profile. It was uploaded to the FBI database, but no match was found. The profile was compared to DNA samples from a large number of people in the community, all with no result. None of them were the killer. Although many were convinced that Hugh Morris was the murderer, forensic analysis completely ruled him out. With this conclusive evidence, the investigation halted again. The police had something extremely valuable, DNA from the killer, but for years, it remained a clue without a face. Then in 2021, the case was reopened again. But this time, there was new hope. A passionate investigator decided to try a new technique known as genetic genealogy. This method, which had helped solve hundreds of cold cases, seemed like the final hope. The detective contacted several specialized laboratories and did everything in his power. But the shock came when he learned that applying this technique required testing the original sample, a step that wasn't easy. The case remained stuck between cutting-edge science and a mystery that refused to be solved. It became a race against time. After many attempts, each lab reached the same disappointing conclusion. The semen sample had degraded too much to yield any usable data. Hope seemed to be fading, but the investigator didn't give up. He turned to one final lab. One last try before the case would be closed forever. There, the unexpected happened. Using advanced technologies and modern tools, experts were finally able to analyze the sample. And for the first time in decades, they extracted the killer's genetic profile. It was uploaded to genealogical databases. A complex search began. Thousands of records, interconnected family trees, miles of possibilities. But gradually, a faint thread began to emerge. The suspicion eventually focused on a specific family. As investigators looked into members of this family, a shocking truth came to light. The DNA likely belonged to one of 3 brothers. But the bigger shock? All 3 were dead. Even that didn't stop the investigators. The search continued until they found the daughter of one of the brothers. Police contacted her and informed her that her father might have been the killer of a young girl. The woman was deeply shocked, a world-shattering revelation, but she agreed to help without hesitation. She provided a sample of her DNA. Sure enough, experts confirmed it was very closely related to the DNA found on Candy's clothes. With those results, police quickly obtained a court order to exhume her father's remains. DNA was extracted from the remains. And after 62 full years, the truth was finally revealed. The killer was a man named John Hoff. DNA tests showed a full match between his DNA and the sample found on Candy's clothing. 6 decades of investigations. Hundreds of suspects. Dozens of theories. Yet John Hoff's name was never mentioned, not even once. As detectives dug into his past, the picture began to come together. In 1959, when the crime took place, John was in his 20s. He lived less than a mile from Candy's house. He wasn't just a neighbor, he was a soldier stationed at a nearby military base, close to where Candy's body was found. But his past held even darker secrets. Just 2 years after Candy's murder, John attacked a woman, tied her up, sexually assaulted her, and tried to kill her. She survived. He was arrested, but received only 6 months in prison and was dishonorably discharged from the army. After his release, he seemed to change his life. He married, had 4 children, and appeared to live a normal life. He worked various jobs. In one of them, a food packaging factory, he suffered a severe chemical burn to his face, leaving a visible scar. His life ended tragically in June 1970, just 11 years after the crime. He took his own life. He left no note, no explanation. Just eternal silence. But the surprises didn't stop there. During the investigation, it was revealed that Candy knew her killer. He wasn't a stranger. She was friends with his younger sister, who was 10 years old at the time. After Candy's death, that sister cried in John's arms, never realizing that he was the one who had murdered her friend. A painful truth no less cruel than the crime itself. Candy's parents never lived to see this historic moment. Her mother died in 2006. But the greater tragedy happened much earlier. Her father took his own life in 1963, just 4 years after Candy's death. No one knows for sure why he did it, but the deep grief over losing his daughter remains one of the strongest explanations. Thus, a chapter was closed, one of the longest investigations in criminal history. More than 62 years of searching. Efforts spanning generations. Detectives who came and went, many never seeing the ending. At the press conference where police finally revealed the killer's identity, there was only one officer present who had worked the case back in 1959. Holding back tears, he said he thanked God for letting him live long enough to see the truth. As for John's daughter, the shock was immense. At first, she refused to believe her father could be such a monster. But eventually, she accepted the truth. She described her father as a beast who stole the life of an innocent girl, and expressed deep sorrow that he escaped punishment during his lifetime. One disturbing detail remained. John committed suicide on the very day his daughter turned 9, the same age as Candy when she was murdered. Was that a coincidence? Did the timing mean something deeper? No one knows. Maybe no one ever will. Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks for watching.